Hi everyone, this is Matthew from NoteFull.com. Thank you very much for coming back to this week's YouTube series on exactly how we're going to master the TOEFL speaking and the writing section. Sometimes we'll do reading, we might do listening in the future, so stay tuned. We'll always have a surprise here for you. But typically we're going to be going over the independent tasks to help you to get over the challenges and the obstacles, whether your test is this week, next week, or next month. We're here to help you succeed as fast as possible. This week, we're going to be reviewing the TOEFL speaking section. And just so you know, we get these tasks from our NoteFull forum. This forum is a site where you can go to review other students' work, to see master instructors' examples back from January 2014 onward. And you'll also be able to see how other students answer these questions to give you inspiration, to help you to stay motivated and to really succeed on the TOEFL each and every day when you practice. So when we prepare, we'll feel more confident, and then you'll be able to move forward and you'll get that score that you need to move forward with your dream. This week, we're going to be doing something challenging, the TOEFL speaking task, which for a lot of students is something that's really important to succeed on in order to get their dream score in the speaking section. So the independent task can be quite intimidating, but I don't want you to panic. Take a deep breath. This week's question is kind of long, but don't worry about that. Look at it as a challenge, but something that's to your advantage. This week we have 3 options, and that's always good because it's helping you in a way. It's giving you the option to choose one of these categories, so you'll be able to have more of a choice in what examples you provide. So let's read it together, and then we'll listen to a student submission. Some people prefer to work for themselves or own a business. Others prefer to work for an employer. Now we have the 3 options. Would you rather be self-employed, work for someone else, or own a business? Now, we only have 15 seconds, so you want to choose quick, but you also want to practice so you're able to act quickly and think quickly. So you might want to practice outside of TOEFL conditions where you give yourself a few minutes to think about it and process. And then when you do other questions, you'll be able to master them more quickly because you'll be able to have that foundation there where you'll be able to do it within a couple of minutes, then get your strength up where you're able to answer the question, then practice with 15-second conditions. And we'll definitely go over that and show you exactly what to do. First, let's listen to this week's student submission, and then we'll see how they did. Let's take a listen.
I would prefer to own my job rather than working as an employee or self-employed for 2 reasons. First of all, if you are a boss, you can get permission anytime you want. For example, I was going to marry 4 years ago, and I needed 2 weeks permission for my wedding ceremony and for my honeymoon. But my boss told me, you can't get 2 weeks permission unless you finish the project before your wedding. This was terrifying for me. Secondly, if you are a boss, you earn so much money and you don't have to wait until the last of month. For example, I pay the mortgage, I have to pay my credit cards, and I have to wait for the last of month to have some money in my pockets.
Okay, so this particular response is fairly good. However, don't be confused by fairly good. I think that a lot of submissions are good and they still get fair. So this question would still be fair for only a couple of reasons. However, there are very good strengths here. This particular student is fairly fluent, which is great. That's to your advantage, but don't get confused by your own assessment, meaning that I feel like I spoke fluently and clearly and well, but I still got a fair score, which is a common struggle for a lot of students. And it's very disappointing when we see our scores after that happens. So what I want to go over here is a couple of things to help you with that. The first thing is that I want you to take advantage of contrasting. This is an important part of the speaking section. It gives us more power, gives us more choice, and it helps to connect our answers better to the reason and the answer as a whole, so you're able to get that 4 out of 4. So for this particular question, I think that both examples would benefit from having that contrast, especially the second example. However, we want to be careful to manage our time well too. So we have 18 seconds for each example, right? Now what we have to do is get to the point very quickly. In the first example, where we want to say that we can give ourselves permission to take time off. Okay, now when we're talking about the first reason and example, this particular example kind of went off course and started talking about feeling terrified, but that's not the connection we're looking for. What we can do here is say, I had to do all this work before my wedding, and I wish I didn't have to. On the other hand, if I was my own boss, I would be able to give this work to someone else, and I would be able to take the time off that I needed. So, however, and on the other hand, is a really great way of being able to adjust your speaking and adjust your answer so you're able to finish on time and get the point across more quickly. Another advantage of this is shortening your reasons, keeping them very direct, very straightforward, so you don't have to over-explain them. Once you over-explain those reasons, you're doing too much work. The less work, the better. Keep it within just a couple of seconds so you're able to give yourself more time to use the contrasting example. And just like the second example, to make it clear, what we want to do here is say, however, if I was the boss, I would have enough money, or I would be making enough money that I would have a bigger savings. Or you could even use the contrasting example where you're talking about your own boss, where they do make a lot of money. They do have a higher salary and a bigger savings, so they don't have to wait each month for their paycheck or each week, however the case may be. In this case, we can just say, on the other hand, before we talk about, the conclusion, we can make sure that the beginning part is going to be clear and sets the foundation. I have credit cards, I have a mortgage, and I have to wait till the end of the month, each month, to be able to receive my check. The next part is going to be, on the other hand, if I was my own boss, or if I worked for myself, I would have more salary to use because of my savings. And it's going to be something short and very easily adjusted. We don't want to over-explain it. We want to get straight to the point when we're contrasting. We're basically just saying the opposite opinion and proving our point. I have credit cards, I have a mortgage, I have to wait. On the other hand, if I was in this position, the opposite position, if I was my own boss, I wouldn't have to worry about that because I would have my own salary. Or to be less general, we can say, on the other hand, like my boss, who does have a high salary, he or she doesn't have to wait until the end of the month to pay their bills because they make a lot of money. So we can specify a little bit more clearly, and then you get your point across more directly, which is a really important point. The second point that I want to bring up is fluency. Like I said, we don't always objectively grade and assess ourselves. When we do good or when we feel like we did bad, it's always the opposite. So if you feel like you did great and then you got fair, you feel like you did fair, but then you did good. You want to be able to assess yourself more objectively. How do we do that? Well, just because you speak fluently, just because you're able to speak clearly, does not guarantee a 4 out of 4. It's 50% of the work, right? So what we want to do is ask ourselves particular questions. How is my timing? Was it within 18 seconds? Yes? Okay. What's the next question? Well, we want to see, how are my reasons? Within that 18 seconds, were 9 or 10 seconds explaining my reason? Was the next 9 to 10 seconds explaining my example in a general way or a specific way? Was there enough time to leave for a connection? If no, we want to go back. We want to create a transcript and be able to see exactly where we went wrong. And we can correct that by shortening our reason, making sure to limit our example just to the direct details like the student here did, but they want to limit back what their example was about. They want to make sure to explain that foundation, and then they want to go into a contrasting example so they can make sure that the content that they're giving is strong and connected and it makes sense and it's clear. We don't want to leave the TOEFL grader hanging. So if you hear that in your own recording, you have to ask yourself that question. Don't automatically judge yourself. A lot of students are very extreme. I did extremely well or I did extremely poorly. Let's go down the middle. You probably did fair, right? You probably didn't do extremely well or extremely poorly. Maybe you did, but don't automatically jump to that conclusion. Ask yourself these questions about how you're adjusting your content. And then what you want to do is, even though you feel confident, what weaknesses show? When you are fluent and when you're speaking very clearly, your weaknesses show more clearly and it's more evident. Grammar or the connections aren't very clear, and it's very easy to tell because you speak very well, and that's an advantage and a disadvantage. But it's good because then you're able to assess yourself more clearly and you can see where you're going right or where you're going wrong. Just make sure to tie up those loose ends at the end, and if you have trouble with that, you can always default to the contrasting example. And if you want to do one reason and one example with a contrast at the end, that's even better. That will help you to expand your content, to extend it a little bit more so you have more details, and then you can fill out the time at the end by explaining your contrasting opinion. So if this particular student wanted to talk about having a savings, like someone who's a boss or has a higher salary, they can talk about their credit cards and their mortgage bills. Then they can talk about that particular example about their boss that they work with, that he or she has a higher salary and they're able to save more. Therefore, they don't have to wait to pay their bills. They can pay it any time they want. And they can use those personal examples in each part to be able to express something very clearly and easily. And remember, this is not a requirement. You don't have to use personal examples. It's just easier, it's quicker, and it's more efficient. And that's the quickest way to get a 4 out of 4 on the TOEFL speaking section for the independent tasks. So now I just want to review what we did, go over an analysis, and then we'll see exactly how we can move forward with your studies as well as on the forum. Okay, so there are 3 things that we want to remember here. The first thing is to create a transcript. If you doubt what you're saying, if you doubt what you're talking about, what we can do is just write out what you said. And in that case, you'll be able to see exactly where your weak points are because you have a visual. Instead of just listening to it and possibly missing certain points, you have a more direct idea about what you're saying and what we can fix. The second thing is that you want to recognize your fluency is an advantage and also, in some cases, a disadvantage in that it's going to show you where your weaknesses are much more clearly than if you weren't as fluent. And when you're not very fluent, it's kind of mixed in with the content and the TOEFL grader might not be following, but when you are very clear and you're very direct with what you're saying, it becomes more apparent about grammatical errors as well as the content because we can hear it much better. So be careful with that and use that to your advantage by looking at where your weaknesses are and where your strengths are. Also assess yourself objectively. You want to make sure to ask yourself about your timing. Are you saying everything on time? Are you making that connection? Are you leaving the listener asking questions? The so what, the how, the why. What is your real answer? Don't do that. Always default to a backup plan. Contrast, it's no problem. You can do that within one reason, one example, if you feel like you need to. Or give yourself enough time and you can do it in 2 reasons, 2 examples, and that will help you to really get the score that you need because you'll feel more confident. You'll have a better, more substantial answer that's much more well connected. Ask yourself these questions, create the transcript, and recognize that your fluency is an important factor, but only 50% of your answer. This particular question would be a 3 to 3.5 because it missed that mark with the connection in both examples. So I want you to learn from this and to be able to jump from this point, from a 3 to 3.5 to a perfect 4. And if you follow our advice, we can guarantee that that's exactly what's going to happen for you. Take a deep breath, relax, and then you'll be able to practice more and more, develop that skill, and then you'll be able to get to that next level of success. So next, we're going to show you exactly how to register for the forum and stay connected with us so you'll have someone to guide you to success as long as you need it until you get your goal score. Let's take a look to see how. So if you want to figure out exactly how you can get to that next level of success and to be a part of a broader community of students who are trying to do that and to succeed on the TOEFL, click the link below. You could email us at studenthelp@notefull.com as well as click on the link for the forum where you'll be able to see more tasks for the writing and the speaking section each week. Each Wednesday, we're going to be reviewing another section here for you to benefit from. So for those students that have their test this weekend, good luck. For upcoming tests and for students that are generally studying and possibly still struggling, good luck, stay strong, be patient, and reach out to us if you need anything at all. We're here to help, and we'll be happy to get back to you as soon as we possibly can. Good luck, everyone.